Well, we're officially watching it. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. I hope you enjoy this review. It's pretty cool. Especially since I've been looking for this movie for a long time. I mean, just long. And I can't even find the case. There we go. As you can see here, it's been released on 4K, but it actually does have an earlier Blu-ray release. Now, this also comes with Dark Knight of the Scarecrow 2. Although that movie wasn't as good as the original, it's still pretty impressive. And I finally get to use the Scarecrow mask. So, let's have some fun and check out Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a damn good movie. And I do recommend it. By the way, you can find it on Amazon if you're looking for it. So here we are meeting Bubba. Now, in case you're wondering, this is the same actor who plays in movies like Dr. Giggles and also, what was that other movie? Oh, yeah, Dark Man 1 and 2, I believe. And even did a guest star in Star Trek. Those are just the films I know of that he's been in. This is like one of his first films. And by the way, this is like all the way back in like 1981. And this was a made-for-TV movie. And I'm going to say it right now, I'm really impressed with how beautiful the film looks. It's still, clearly a product of its time and its particular design, but I have zero complaints. The characters all work very well. The story starts out first with, a little title sequence, and then we meet Bubba here and his friend. See, here he is. He's basically a gentle giant and stuff, and it's kind of cool. Even though he's an adult, he has the mind of a child. Pretty cool when you think about it. I mean, they do a great job here on this film, I'm not going to lie. And of course, the film introduces us to one of our primary villains, and where a good chunk of the drama as well as the horror is going to come from. I mean, this is a great actor. I've seen him in a couple of other things, but Letter Carrier, Mailman, talk about going postal. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to make that joke, okay? I just had to. Needless to say, he's like one of the people who gets a posse up and takes on Bubba a little later on. So here's how the story goes. It's up to this point. Basically, Bubba is like disabled. His mind still is that of a child. I can't say what people used to call them, but, he's one of those people. Basically a gentle giant, like I said earlier. And he's still a kid. He's probably even, from what I can gather from the way he acts, younger than her. And the fact that this actor who I've seen play these like maniacal or these really business characters is able to pull this off is just incredible. This guy, however, is like this person who's like, he's stuck in his ways. He's a very demanding person. And as the film progresses, he starts to develop a little differently. He hates Bubba. He hates everything about him. And he's an extremely dangerous person. He's also not exactly skinny either. I mean, the film sets up, just like in the first 20 minutes, like an incredible amount of detail. And the guy who plays Bubba is only in it for so long. I can't remember his exact name, so I'm not going to try to butcher it. Sorry. And that's usually the point. If I can't remember or I can't pronounce it properly, I'm not going to say a person's name, mainly because I don't want to butcher their names. It's a little thing, but it gets good. However, this film is so good. Even though this is a made-for-TV movie, it's been restored first for like Blu-rays, and then it gets this nice 4K remastery, and you can still, see like an amazing amount of the dirt and grain that makes the film up. It's 1981. This is still an incredibly beautiful film. The Blu-ray is just as good, but the 4K version is clearly the superior one. And I'll get a little more into that later. But it really just works very well.
Let's get down there and break it up then.
What good would it do? 2 days, you'll be back again just like before.
Not this time. I'm going to teach that moron a lesson.
You're wasting your time.
Just you wait and see. When I get through with him,
You're wasting your time. He's an idiot. He can't remember. You ought to know that by now.
what do we do then?
Nothing.
Nothing. Wait a minute. I don't understand this. It was your idea he's dangerous in the first place. You're the one that always wants to run down there and rub his face in the dirt. What happened all of a sudden? You changed your mind.
He's a blight. Like stinkweed and cutworm that you spray and spray to get rid of, but always keep coming back. No, I haven't changed my mind. Something's got to be done.
See what I mean? These are your villains. These are the people who are so set in their ways they can't see somebody who's not dangerous. Everything that's not like them is dangerous. And this sets up the mindset that will eventually go through later on in the film. Especially as we get to this point where the girl is put in actual danger. I mean, literally, and of course, guess who gets blamed for it? Bubba didn't do it. Now, after that sequence, of course, Bubba is blamed for hurting the little girl, and these guys actually think she's dead, and, now they're getting their posse together. Great. There we are, our so good old boy posse, going out to hunt a poor unfortunate guy. This is how the film really starts to pick up. You get to the point where, of course, these guys go out to hunt, and it's not going to be pretty. It's always like this with these people. And of course, Bubba's being chased by these people, and what happens? Of course, he gets caught. He basically, is no more than a child in his head, and he's like 36. But what does he do? He hides in a Scarecrow, hide and seek. And of course, our favorite everyday villain decides to find him. I mean, you can see him shaking, terrified. And of course, look at the fun. He's like, oh yeah, finally I get to do something. He ain't no threat to nobody. Oh, you know what's going to happen now.
About.
Hadn't you heard? Them girl's all right. It's all a mistake. Hank Renfro's dog jumped her. They've already released her from the clinic, sent her home. Funny part is, old Bubba saved her life. Ain't that a laugh?
And of course, they basically put that pitchfork right there to frame old Bubba for everything. And basically also so they can get themselves off. Remember, these are good old boys. This is a particular community where, they're going to be believed unless there's like serious evidence. And what the hell happens later on is just pretty serious. I mean, it gets just insane. And these four guys, they play incredible roles in this. I mean, a couple of them you want to love to hate. And what's happening through this scene is that there's also this wind going by, like the ghost knows what's going on. And there's poor Bubba, literally now dead in that Scarecrow outfit. And it gets a little bit more interesting from there. The trial here is pretty much like, it's shoddy. It shows how corrupt these people are with their good old boyfriends. I mean, he's like, he was unarmed, and the other lawyer's like, that's a lie. He had a pitchfork. Oh yeah, he was armed. I think I'll just let this play so you get the idea.
Against 4 men with guns. He might as well have had a feather duster against that firing squad.
To be fair, the only one who looks like he's actually both still scared and remorseful is the guy on the end, who's usually got the red polka dot hat. Why they gave that guy that hat, I will never know. And all the others are like, oh God, he's really trying to screw us over. Yeah. I mean, you can see it. The way they act, the way they do, they think they're better than everybody else and stuff. But, Nothing ever truly gets that easy in a film like this, especially when you're dealing with the undead. And like I said, good old boys. They come out and they are literally being treated like heroes. You know, just shows you how corrupt a community like this can be when they think, hey, we're doing fine. We can just cause whatever kind of damage we want, never considering there's always consequences. This is where the film really starts to get in, because then it becomes part of a psychological thriller as well as a ghostly one, as they're picked off one by one. I think that's what makes this film so unique, is that it's very different. They used like the Scarecrow very sparingly. They used the psychological to its exact. I mean, it becomes at one point almost a murder mystery as these four dudes start to drop like flies. And yes, Halloween is in the movie too, so it does fit for our little October weeks of Halloween. But it's how they go. And the film actually does have a pretty significant body count, I'm not going to lie. I'm in fact sometimes myself surprised how many people actually croak. I mean, plus you've got the mom who hates these guys. And of course everybody is trying to defend them for this. But the main dude right there, our mailman, he's the real bastard. And remember, he basically said, oh, the dude came at me with a pitchfork. That will come back to bite him in the ass a little later, if you get my meaning. Just foreshadowing something. It's pretty good. And here comes our first character to get his comeuppance. Well, it starts out slow and then it builds up. Notice something? It's the Scarecrow Bubba was in. Ooh, Bubba's back. And of course, they start turning on each other. They start suspecting stuff. They start thinking people are doing this. Here they are confronting Otis, literally the mailman guy, right in his home. Well, I think it's a halfway house, or, oh no, wait, I think it was a boarding house he lives in the town. So, not bad. But it tells you a lot. Basically our green shirt guy here is the first one to be targeted by good old Bubba's ghost. But I love how they do it, because they don't do it in a traditional way. So everything that happens after that point becomes like, with each one of these people dying, it's this mystery. It's like you're drawn in. The Scarecrow is gone, and all of a sudden, everything just seems to be happening. This is like a fun house, a haunted house thing. You don't know if it's a real person or not. You don't know if it's a ghost. It works very well in that regard, and it actually does set this film up. Then, of course, you have the three conspirators. They come in, and they're like, what's going on? And they find out, somebody has to be responsible. Somebody is paying them back. And it makes sense, too. And that's the thing. This movie could have just been some dude popping into the Scarecrow outfit, taking these guys out one by one. But instead, what happens at the end is what truly makes it good, and is what really sets the story. And it's so good. They didn't need super level fancy visual effects. They didn't need, let's face it, in the sequence, kind of like what I said about Poltergeist, you don't need guys jumping while buildings are exploding. Sometimes you can just tell a good story by having actors who know what the heck they're doing. I feel for some movies that's like a lost art nowadays. It really sucks. And of course, here he is getting drawn up to the top. There's that wood chipper thing on the bottom. You just know he's not going to make it. And again, it fits into that, is it a real person? Is it a ghost? Who could it be? Who could it be now? No, 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 no. And of course, after everything's said and done, here's our guy enjoying his breakfast, enjoying his life, and finding out that his friend is basically toast. And of course, the tension continues to grow. As you can see here, they're thinking, well, it ran out of gas. That little stick right there says otherwise. In fact, they make the comment of, that damn thing's full. Basically, this starts happening. Each and every one of them starts getting picked off one by one with all of this. They at first think it's each other, then they think it's somebody else, and then all hell breaks loose. And this guy eventually thinks it's old Bubba's mama. Like I said, one by one they start getting picked off. There's our Scarecrow, now filled with straw. You can even see it sticking out. Basically, all hell's about to break loose for these guys, and they know it. Like I said, he goes after Bubba's mama, and already these two hate each other, you can tell. Unfortunately, what happens in this scene is just incredible. What he's just done basically leads to her death. This is a 40-year-old film. I'm not going to spoil anything really that much. But basically, if there wasn't a reason for the spirit to become haunting his ass, there is one now. Of course, he does something a little worse by blowing up the house a little later on. I just love the look on his face as he realizes, like, oh, I messed up again. Big time. Like, he just keeps digging the grave deeper. And of course, it's gonna eventually just get, like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, a little explosive. Needless to say, this dude's getting a pretty good body count, I would say. Um, I mean, holy crap. This film does not play around. And remember, this was made for TV, and they do this kind of stuff. I'm actually kind of impressed. I mean, it gets pretty good. The film definitely doesn't play around when it wants to. And of course, we get to eventually the end. Now, this guy is responsible for a lot of people dying. He's responsible for a lot of stuff happening. And eventually, he goes after the little girl. I don't know what possessed this dude, but he is dangerous. And eventually, well, he gets his comeuppance. And by the way, they show earlier this thing being actually turned on. And, ooh, hello. Remember what I said about comeuppance and foreshadowing? Yep. If that ain't some justice, I don't know what is. Plus, that's just kind of creepy. He doesn't even have to move, and he's already terrifying. It just makes this film a lot better, in my opinion.
Thank you, Bubba.
So that's pretty much Dark Night of the Scarecrow. The film does an incredible job of doing most of the film being either psychological or the occasional haunted house. It doesn't need to make all these flashy visual effects. It's really quite good in that one. But what's really interesting is the dynamic between the character of Bubba, the little girl, his mom, and these four vigilantes who are complete good old boys who just feel like they can do whatever the hell they want. And yet, I can't help but feel like this film is like a little strange masterpiece. It's just incredible. And this sequence alone is in such incredible shape. In fact, it's probably the best looking part of the film for some reason. I mean, it looks great. And in fact, in 4K, it's like, damn, this is really incredible. So it's just a great film all around. And this was the film that was basically responsible for setting off, all of those Scarecrow horror movies. I've seen quite a few, and there's some that are good and some that are just like, why? Why would you make this in the first place? This film, though, I saw this when I was a kid, and I haven't seen it since. And I remember quite a bit. Bubba being gunned down, this sequence at the end, the revenge, Halloween, um, and I'm glad parts of it stuck in my head so well, including this sequence. However, um, I always, because it had been so long, my memory of this was almost like they had done the Scarecrow in sort of stop motion instead of what they did, which was like puppeteering. And it just makes for one hell of a sequence. It gives Bubba here as a Scarecrow this unnatural, unusual look, and it just works so well. Now, I do want to get into a big difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K copy here. Um, Visually, they're almost identical, except for the 4K having definitely better quality here and there. But what I was really surprised about with both films was the 5.1 surround sound, which in this case is DTS 5.1. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the Blu-ray it's all right. That's about all I can really say. But when I put this 4K copy in and tried it out, holy shit! It was so much more immersive. I think when they did this 4K transfer and wanted to make sure they did a few more little checks, that they gave the DTS 5.1 for the 4K a nice little upgrade. Plus, they were putting two on the same disc, so you're getting two movies for one. And the surround sound is actually incredible in this movie. It doesn't need to be, like a constant thing, but when it's working and everything, it's really incredible in this room. It's definitely better than the Blu-ray version. And that's an important thing. Now, all the special features for this film are also on the Blu-ray, so there's that. Sorry, 2 is not on the Blu-ray. It's only on the 4K copy. And I saw 2. I might review it later on. In my opinion, it's nowhere near as good as this film. This film, even though it was definitely not a big budget film and stuff, it knew what it wanted to do. It did psychological, it did ghostly horror, it did all of this stuff just right. And yet, it's something that you can still let kids watch, which is what I think makes the film so damn good. And I'm going to defend that until my dying day. I like it. And I think a lot of other people will too, because it just works so well. There's an impressive cast of characters. It's well done, well made. And it's clear, they didn't have like a super budget, but they pulled some pretty cool stuff off, and I'm going to defend it for that. And it's not a short film. This film almost clocked in at 1 hour and 40 minutes. Most films are like an hour and 30. This film is actually longer than some theatrical films, believe it or not, that are usually just barely at the 1 hour and 30 mark. So for a made-for-TV movie, that's pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. This film was great, and I was so psyched to get my hands on it. Oh, I'm so psyched. Although, I'll admit, some of the other Scarecrow movies, I was kind of expecting him to have one of those Scarecrow hats on. Again, it's just like the last time I saw it, I think I was like 6 years old, and this film came out in 81. So this thing is like almost, 43 years old? So this first film did pretty good. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, the director of this film was Frank DiPolita. Now, in case you're wondering who that is, that was the author of The Entity. He was involved in the real case. And to think the guy who was in The Entity, who saw the real thing, was the writer and also was one of the people on the film, and he does this, that's pretty good. And this is definitely after The Entity. They actually mentioned a few times in one of the documentaries. This is a great film. I give it at least 3.5 stars. It holds up extremely well, and even the parts of the film that, don't look the most crystal clean and clear, they still stand out incredibly well. The 4K copy is definitely worth it. I don't know if everybody's going to feel that way, but it's definitely worth it. Happy Halloween. Like and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.